Congratulations and welcome to part 5 of your IGC portfolio for this year. Once again, I'm Mr. Morris and this is the final project. I know, celebrate! Congratulations once again on making it this far. This is the last project that you will need to accomplish for your IGC portfolio. So once you get this done, then all you have to do is kick back, relax, and hopefully graduate then, or at least be one step closer to it. So before we get started, this is as I said, part 5 of the portfolio for biology this year. That is on the interdependence within environmental systems. What is that, I hear you asking? That's an excellent question. I'm so glad we're on the same wavelength. That is really just a fancy way of saying how the environment or how everything within an environmental system fits together. The food, the resources, the plants, the animals, and how it actually fits together and works to maintain that balance. What we're going to be taking a look at for this project, though, is what happens when that balance is imbalanced, whenever we introduce an invasive species into an environmental system. What's an invasive species? You are so good at asking the right question. An invasive species is a species that is not native to an environmental system, that is introduced somehow, and because it has no natural predators, but is perfectly adaptable to the environment itself, it spreads like wildfire. And so what we're going to do is take a look at two scenarios. All you have to do is choose one. I know I'm amazing. You get choices. Choices are great, and you get one. So all you have to do is choose one of two options in order to actually take a look at the invasive species. So let's take a look at what you will need to do in order to pass this project. So what you have here is an entire list of examples of invasive species to choose from, right? And so you have a lot of animals, but several plants in here, because yes, plants can be invasive species as well. Or you can actually take a look at at our local game and fish website, find some local examples of an invasive animal species or plant species, either one. And then what you're going to do, here's where the option comes in, is you're going to write an obituary. An obituary for one of two things. You're either going to write an obituary for a species that has died off as a result of an invasive species that has moved into the area. So in other words, you have an environmental system and an invasive species has been introduced to that environmental system, and because nothing was done about it, one of the native species has died off. And so you're going to write an obituary for that species that has died off as a result of an invasive species that has moved into the area. You'll take a look at the life history of your species, whether it's a plant or an animal, does not matter. But you're going to take a look at it. You're going to take a look at the history of it. If it's a plant, what was the plant used for? Was it useful for anything else at all? How long has it been there? What did it look like? Does it have any other family type of plants that we would be aware of? Anything such as this. Explain the life history of your organism. Explain how long it normally blooms. Is it a perennial plant? Is it a frog or anything that has a certain lifespan? So whatever it is, use the most details possible. The article should explain specific ways that the non-native species outcompeted the native species. In other words, if it's a plant that you're looking at, you'll have to say that it took over the sunlight, or it took over the soil, or it took over the nutrients, or whatever it was, and it pushed out the plant species under it. If it's an animal, it hunted food that another species or that your species ate. It used the living spaces that your species used. Whatever it is that this invasive species did to cause your species that you're going to choose in order to die out, that's what you're going to look at. You'll look at how the non-native species or the invasive species has impacted the ecosystem. Did it just simply insert itself and just take the place of the species, or did it actually have an entire population boom and cause the entire ecosystem to actually change in some drastic way? And then in order to do all this, I want you to make it at least one full page in length. So you need details. And as an example for what this is in a smaller example, I want you to elaborate on this. But here's an example or this is a sample obituary for one. This is a shortened one, obviously, just about double this in length. You notice it has a picture here of the species that it's talking about. This is where it is, Phoenix. It talks about a specific frog, which is a long-time Arizona resident, which died. Died on Sunday after a hard-fought battle with the bullfrog. So notice, give it that obituary flair. Okay, you're writing an obituary. Pretend that you're actually writing one. This is also a creative writing assignment, as it were. Then go in and says the leopard frog loved living in the Arizona desert. It could survive in the hot desert by burrowing underneath for months at a time. It lived most of its life near waterways and fed on insects, spiders, and small lizards and fish. Give examples. Like, in order to make it longer, give specific examples. What kind of insects? What kind of spiders? What kind of lizards and fish? For months at a time, it says it burrows underground for months at a time. Why did it burrow underground? It was loved by community members as it kept its insect populations in check. So there's a great example of what the frog was doing. The leopard frog was a good bioindicator, letting us know that the local environment was healthy and thriving. It is now a local pest that is detrimental to the desert riparian ecosystem. So in other words, explain on this, expound on this. This is a great bare bones example, but give explanations, give examples. That's how you're going to make the full page paper. Give examples of how is it actually a local pest and how is it detrimental. And then, of course, end it out like you do with any obituary. Funeral services will be held at Lake Pleasant Regional Park. Insert your own funeral parlor or church or whatever here. That doesn't matter. In lieu of flowers, please send donations to the Arizona Game and Fish Department. So once again, it just has that obituary flair. You could even add, if you wanted to throw in something for the obituary, just say it survived by, and then include several different animals that it lived around. So that is an example of obituary for option one. Option number two. I'm glad you asked about option number two, because this is to write an obituary for an invasive species that you have found a way to eliminate. The article must explain the method used to exterminate the invasive species. The method chosen must have a minimal impact on other organisms in the area. Your method must be well thought out and be a viable solution to the problem. In other words, it must be a workable, actual solution to the problem. Once again, must be at least one full page in length. And once again, for an example, take a look here. Once again, including the picture. The bullfrog finally met its match as local residents were awarded monetarily, in other words, they were paid that handsome money, for killing and turning in female bullfrogs to the Arizona Game and Fish Department. This method of elimination shouldn't have any negative impacts on other local species. Make sure you tell why. Okay? Why? In this instance, because you're only aiming for monetary gains on the females of the bullfrog species. Once again, explain, give examples. That's how you extend an essay or extend an article. That's how you do it. Examples. The bullfrog is survived by the leopard frog, the surrounding green toad, and the Sonoran tiger salamander. Funeral services will be held at Lake Pleasant Regional Park. In lieu of flowers, please send donations to the Arizona Game and Fish Department. Jazz it up. Make it as much like an obituary as you can, and must include a picture. So just to show you exactly what it is that we're going to be looking at whenever we are grading this, here is the rubric. For the Interdependence Within Environmental Systems project, in order to get an A, you have to have more boxes ticked off here in the A department or in the A column than you do in any other column. To get a B or C, you have to have more of these filled in with everything than you do anywhere else. If you don't want to pass, then this is the column as to why. This is to explain it. Okay, so a picture, you must include a full picture, a full color picture. Okay, it's not going to be hard. You have Google and you have the internet right at your fingertips. A full picture is required. Now, if you just include a simplistic sketch or a black and white picture or a simplistic or cartoon depiction of your species, then I mean that will count, but it won't be as good as an actual full color picture. Okay, then obviously if your picture is missing, then there you go. In order to get an A, once again, includes in-depth background information about the invasive species. This is option number 1. Competition clearly explains how the invasive species competes with the native species and how the invasive species has impacted the ecosystem. How has it impacted it? Give examples. Be specific. That's the key. And then obviously, obituary is written in a very organized manner and is free of grammatical and spelling errors. You have a spell check. There should be no reason why words are misspelled. If you have any questions on whether something is grammatically correct and how you say it, or anything about syntax, and you can either contact me or Mr. Glenn. Doesn't matter. We're both free to help you out. Do not hesitate to reach out. If you're going to choose option number 2, once again, picture must be included. In-depth background information about the native species and its role in the ecosystem, and then explain a well thought out and viable method, in other words, a workable method, something that can actually be used to eliminate the invasive species. Also note any impacts that your solution might have on any of the local species. You might think of an actual solution that will work and get rid of an invasive species, but it might also have a negative impact on everything else. That's fine. I'm not asking you to come up with one that has zero impact, but I am asking you to think about the impact that your solution will have. Once again, it needs to be one full page in length. If you have any questions whatsoever, by all means, all you have to do, email me. If you don't have any questions, then go ahead and complete the project. And once again, congratulations on being on part 5 and the final part. Congratulations. Have fun.